Okay, is he coming in or what?
Yeah. I'll just say goodbye.
That's one of my former students there, Dennis Walker, who I mentioned, not maybe in this class, but in my other class. He worked with us here, and he got into Time magazine, in fact, because of one of the archaeological expeditions we took out to the Dead Sea Cliffs, and he represented me, and he found some information, and so we got his picture in Time magazine, and I think he was happy about that. I don't think I ever got my picture in Time magazine, so. Where are we? We are Peter's tablecloth vision, right? Somewhere around that point. So, the voice cries out to Peter on chapter 10:14. Kill, eat. Peter says, I have never eaten any unclean or profane thing. So now, according to this, do we disagree? I mean, this presentation implies Peter is keeping what we have to refer to as Jewish dietary laws. Is that fair enough? Anyone disagree with that? So, if Peter is keeping dietary laws at this point, either he misunderstood Jesus' message, or Jesus didn't regulate that issue in his lifetime. And my position is that from the evidence in Galatians, the issue has not been regulated. But the Gospels don't agree with that. The Gospels claim the issue was regulated. Does everyone agree with that, where we are so far on that position? I mean, do you know what we're talking about? Anyone, even if you're a believer or not a believer, you agree that there's the data. That's what the data is saying. That the issue, what is the issue? Well, whether you must keep dietary regulations, whether you must follow the Mosaic law, whether you must, separate holy from profane, whether you must, separate polluted from impure and clean from unclean. And up to this point, even Acts author admits Peter is doing this, keeping dietary regulations, separating holy from profane. And never has not done it, according to this. Now, I mean, I'm not a big believer in Acts. You all have learned that, and you can agree or disagree with me, right? Whether you feel that's appropriate, but I'm be upfront about that. I don't credit Acts, historically speaking, too strongly. I think there's history underlying it, as I've said, but I don't think that the way it presents it is free of an agenda. So even with the agenda, let's say I'm correct, maybe I'm not correct, maybe the other side of it is Acts is totally true, everything that happened happened. And some of you may agree to think that, and you're certainly about to do that, and it's certainly a much more pleasant thing to feel that way. Faith is easier in that regard. Your situation in your church, whatever, is more easily dealt with, and you can feel more comfortably spiritually speaking. So that, there's nothing wrong with that position. It is a religious position. But even if you have that position, that you feel everything is true and so on and so forth, you will admit that even with Acts' point of view, whatever it is, Acts acknowledges here that Peter was keeping Jewish dietary regulations. Okay, anyone, there's nobody, faith or not faith, that can deny that point, right? So from that point, then you have to say, why was he doing this if Jesus wasn't? Well, you see, that's the big question. So my solution might be different from yours. You don't have to be where I am. I'm 60, so most of you are in your 20s. You got 40 years to get as cynical as me. So look, if I'm cynical, just envision what you may become 40 years from now, and you're not, okay? You disagree with me. That's fair enough. So just realize that I was once like you. I believed everything. I believed everything that was told me. I believed all these materials. I thought, I just tried to figure out how it could all be the way it was being presented. But later on in life, as Paul says, when I was young, I saw as through a glass darkly. When I grew up, I put away childish things. That's to some extent what I did. Maybe I shouldn't have. Maybe it's more fun to be like, I was laughing in my other class about Jason Timberlake, and then they told me his name was Justin Timberlake. So, you know, I found out that my classes knew more about Justin Timberlake than they knew about the Black Hills of South Dakota. So maybe it's more fun to be like that. Just accept the world as it's given you and know about all the icons of your present age and not go deeper into it than that, and life can be more pleasant. But when we take a course like this, as we said, we sometimes need to, you know, go deeper, and that's my apology to you. If I've hurt your feelings or upset you or said things that you find stressful and so on, it's only by trying to get at the deeper meaning and see what, if we can find out what, not so much for a religious point of view, though I think there is a religious meaning to it all. I am, as I told you, a Jamesian in the sense that I think James's approach to things was more authentically Palestinian and more Jesus-like than the overseas person we call Paul with the Roman citizenship. So I think people today are more interested in pure foods. I think people today are more interested in having some kind of dietary differentiation between clean and unclean. I think people are more interested in separating holy from profane. I think people want to do that, and they miss that. And I think that maybe we don't want to go all whole hog. I mean, look, I eat shrimp, lobster, I eat pork, I eat meat with blood in it and stuff like that, but maybe we don't want to go as extreme as some of the, you know, but those people, as we said last time, were operating under the taboos of their time in the scientific knowledge that they had. And they knew that blood was a worrisome thing. They knew that pork had trichinosis. They knew that bottom-feeding fish were dangerous, and you could get, different diseases from those things, and they put it in the area of a taboo, as we said. So maybe they were too extreme, but on the other hand, I think the opposite might be too extreme too. So to go back to the Jamesian position, to my mind, would be a healthy thing, perhaps for some people in the modern age. So I have no apologies to make on trying to rescue James out of the obscurity here. We certainly agree that he's here, he's in the background, but he's not coming into the foreground yet. The next chapter he will start to. In any case, here's the historical Peter. So even according to Acts, Peter never ate any unclean thing before this vision. But does that agree with Galatians? No. Paul presents Peter as a swing figure. Now, do we have the same person? Is Cephas the same as Peter? Now, we all know what the Cephas problem is, right? And we've already discussed that sufficiently, that sometimes Peter's called Cephas, which is the Aramaic word for rock. Sometimes he's called Peter, which is the Greek word for rock. And other times he's called Simon. So it's hard to get a handle on, you know, if these are all the same person or if they were different people by these names. And so even Paul sometimes calls him Cephas and sometimes calls him Peter. So are they the same? Most people say yes, but maybe there were two different Peters, I don't know. In any case, this Peter here is not the Peter in Galatians, in the sense that the Peter in Galatians Paul calls what? A hypocrite. He says, I know you used to eat with Gentiles, meaning he ate impure foods. Is that clear? That's what it means by that. You kept table fellowship. And now when the representative of James came down, you stopped doing this. Which also, as we agreed, or at least I felt was the proper conclusion, meant that James was the head honcho. That flies against all doctrine, doesn't it? I don't think there's any church in the universe that acknowledges that James is the head honcho. Has anyone ever heard that in their church, that James is the boss? But it's in the book. It's in the literature. That's the weird thing. It's right in the book, and yet no one can acknowledge it. What stops people from acknowledging it? Because